We are live. Is the thing here? Is the thing here? Let's unmute it. See it. We are live. Wow, that was actually kind of good time. Anyway, okay. Go to Twitter. Boom. Tweet. Boom. Send email. Boom. There we go. We're doing this. We're live. Yep, we're here. Back with way more energy. Never did my part 2. So I just put the end thing here. So basically, yet another overview of what we did. I just like going through all the pages again and again. Still need to look those characters up. Okay, now let's get started. I don't want to use this pencil. Let's use our thick boy for today. Our Uniball Alpha Gel Thick Edition. This is the Uniball Alpha Gel Thin Edition. I actually really like this one. I got this one more recently, so that's why I was using it more often. But I also really like this one. Feels real nice. This person right here will be pondering, just pondering, thinking real hard. Yes, indeed. She's like, A bit tired, a bit restless, has some bags under their eyes. She's like, yeah, it's been thinking about this for a while. They're not sure what they should be thinking, but they are thinking. We'll just get get a rough body in. Just add some. shaped thing. And there's our gesture page. I'm gonna draw Ebony again. I'm gonna kind of put her like in the mood I was yesterday, where I was just like, so sleepy. And someone's vacuuming. Yay! Sorry about all the noise. Can't really help it. Yeah, let's just... yeah. Yeah, let's just mute the microphone. Oh hey, it's Let's Not now. Yay. One thing about Emily is that due to what she is, she's something called a proto-demi, so she's artificially a demi-human. Less through test tubes and more like souls were kind of like directly injected into the womb of her mother when she was still, you know, forming, being conceived. What do you call that state? Which caused her to have both demonic and angel properties, which is usually more unhealthier for her than healthier, like in general. So it's not like it gives her a lot of abilities, it's just more so that, oh hey, She's actually really unhealthy, and because of that, depending on wherever she's in a paradigm of either demonic or angelic, because her body has to slightly focus towards one over the other in order to like be in any form of a healthy state. I mean, then she has to be careful with how much she eats. Her stomach can't handle a lot in general, so she has to be so she has to eat a significant amount of food with a lot of nutrients to them, because otherwise her stomach would just get too upset from too much food at all at once. But yeah, but anyway, she essentially, her hair can switch between black or white, and her eyes invert as well, black and white, which is supposed to show which one's more currently dominant. And when she's more relaxed and just kind of letting her emotions kind of be in control, her demonic side shows more. Like, technically, organ-wise, she is fully human, but they take on properties of angel and demonic ways, depending on which side she shifted in. And another thing about her hair, since she's technically she has burn scars for most of her body, and it partially wraps around her head, kind of like that. So even though the source of her hair is right here, she stylizes it when she's in her angel paradigm to kind of be kind of flipped over like that, because the hair on this side of her head has a harder time growing, so that's why it's shorter. So instead of just constantly having to cut one side specifically, she just kind of stylizes it, which is a lot easier for her. I did this. It was originally a holdover to what her original concept was, which she was a side character in a completely different story originally. But I ended up liking what I was doing with her, so I decided to make an entire story just based around her, and that has changed very heavily. Like to the point where they're not even like the same character anymore. So the whole angel demon thing is a holdover from that. And as she became more of her own character, I gave that more and more weaknesses and more reason why she shouldn't be considered overpowered. Like, probably most shonen protagonists can probably end up being her in a fight if you're like doing it like death battle style, but that's not the point of her characters to be strong or something like that. It's supposed to be, I kind of like converted the angel and demon thing into more of a thing that says about her personality. Because as she grows up more and more in life, she starts to become more and more cynical. So she starts to be more based around her angel side of things. Because angels in this world are specifically very intelligence based, like to the point where they start to lack like basic instincts. For survival. Like for example, angels in this world, despite still needing to be still need to eat in order to survive, they cannot feel hunger. That's like how uninstinctual they are and how logic based they are. They have to like schedule in their own eating habits in order to properly keep themselves fed. And again, they still need to eat to survive. So yeah. And one thing I want to avoid is displaying humans as like the middle ground, because I feel like that's often something that the story was originally also going to have, but I decided to make them more humans as kind of like more the representation of like chaos and just like inconsistency. And I kind of wanted to treat angels and demons as almost kind of like aliens in a way, like how like aliens would kind of like interact with them. Like they already had their whole invasion phase in the lore. Now they're just kind of like either very dissonant, wanting to interact but get treated as almost like second-class citizens and stuff like that. It's more like how I would imagine probably aliens would interact with real humans in a way, but with angels and demons instead. Might have yet mentioned this the other day, but the whole world itself is in this industrial-esque punk kind of world, mixed with fantasy. So they have stuff like radios and stuff, but they don't have things like television. Yeah, basic lighting. A lot of villages still don't have proper electricity and things like that. So a lot of things are still in that kind of developing industrial revolution sort of thing. And by the time Ellie is an adult, telephones are starting to become the standard of a household thing. And maybe like cameras are starting to become a thing as well. I know vehicles are a thing ever since Ebony would be a child. Because the story will take place over two major arcs, which is the child arc and the adult arc, which have kind of two different very tones. So I decided to kind of like intermix them a lot. So you don't get the stark contrast like that you would get from like regular Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. So incorporating both of them at the same time, where we see some chapters when she's an adult and some chapters when she's a child, that sort of thing. So it's like taking like two decks of cards and intersplicing them in a way, where one's not necessarily a flashback to the other, it's just mixing them up in a way that'll keep the pacing well. Because the child arc is definitely more slice of life-esque, and the adult arc is definitely more action-oriented / more adult drama sort of thing. So it kind of like mixes the two over time. Eventually, the child arc will end roughly around when Ebony... I always call her Ellie because her original name was Elnora Ebony, until I changed it to Ebony Honora. It's mainly just due to how the ideas developed over time. She's still called Ellie in the story because when she was young, she had a really bad lisp, so she always pronounced everything with an L, like Elnoa Eleni, which is how she always says her name when she was younger. So she got the nickname of Ellie, and that's what she commonly goes by, even to this day after she developed out of her lisp. So legally, she should be just called Ebony, but she's also called Ellie. So, yeah. So basically, the child arc would end when she was like 18, 19-ish, and the adult arc starts when she's like 24, 25-esque. So there is some years in between. But that's just more so that it'll be like an easier transition between the adult and child arc, where it's not just literally just two halves of the story just spliced together like that. You know? Like, let's draw a little kid, Ellie. I'd probably make the setup of the story maybe a little bit more complicated than it should, just mainly because it developed from a completely different idea a long time ago. And I feel like trying to explain it is kind of hard because it's one of those series that like it makes more sense in context than trying to explain individual parts at once. Because I feel that a lot of things about lore tends to sound overly complicated if you try to explain it. Even like stuff like even just like a sitcom that takes place in real life, if you just try to explain everything all at once, it just ends up sounding like, wow, that sounds stupid. But if you actually watch the episodes in order and have everything introduced slowly, it makes a lot more sense. And it kind of has that less kind of like negative kickback. But I admit my lore is a bit complicated because I am a bit of a lore whore, admittedly. So I like my deep lores. So yeah. So here's a little L. One thing I always wanted to make is her eyebrows just like dark. Just so you can even if she's in an angel paradigm, I still want her eyebrows to be dark. Because I think it just gives a little bit extra character. Having her like thick dark eyebrows. I haven't watched Tokyo Ghoul in like forever. I only have watched the first season. I heard the second season was a bit of a train wreck. But I guess that's neat. I guess. And also, hey Deacon, how's it going? Good to hear. Now I am drawing Alice, who is Ellie's big stepsister. Uh, I've been trying to get back into things for a while now, and these are characters from my a manga idea. I just wrote down a bunch of like things like to draw in today's stream, which is just a bunch of different ideas I have from manga. These two characters are from the series Brightest Darkness, which is something I am working on. I've actually been thinking of trying to do like a fan manga of something for a while now, and thinking try to use that as like a bit of practice. And since it would be like a fan work, I don't have to worry about like it being as good because it's fan work, and I don't like how her lips are coming out. So yeah, it's like a part of using this sketchbook is trying to get back into drawing way more, because this is a thick boy, a very very thick boy, and I guess my only real goal for this sketchbook is to at least complete it this year. So yeah. Also, I want to do longer drawing streams. I just want to draw more. I want to get more serious about drawing, because right now I'm kind of like stuck in between a rock and a hard place in terms of like jobs and stuff like that. Trying to find one, but I have really bad restrictions on getting a job because I am stupid. Well, I'm not stupid. It's just having autism sucks, and it makes me not be able to do very simple things, like having the ability to think driving is safe. But my mind just like, nope, it's dangerous, don't do it. Along with a number of other things as well. And just being generally socially awkward and stuff. The pen I'm using is a mechanical pencil called the Uniball Alpha Gel. Let me just go into properties, configure video, close U, autofocus. There we go. It's a really, really good mechanical pencil. I love this thing so much. So, yeah. It's just great. I love it. So, yeah. But anyway, as I was speaking, it's just that I'm just stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and one of the things I want to do with my life is, you know, make a living off of drawing, telling stories, and stuff like that, because it's what I want to do. It's something that's very important to me, and I figured by now, at my age, when I was like 14, that I would have something at least concrete down, but I still don't, which sucks. So I'm just now kind of like trying to kick myself in the butt and to just like say, hey, just do it already. You have all the tools. All you just need to do is do it. And stuff like that. So, yeah. I get too self-critical, and I just need to do things. I just need to do things. Because otherwise, I'm just going to draw portraits all day. Like with these. So let's draw a full body sketch. And this one will be of young Alice. When she is around 15, 16-ish. You know. When she first meets Ellie. It's not talent, it is skill. I don't mean to be mean. I don't mean to be rude. But I am the kind of person who goes, no, calling me talented is an insult to my practice. Because I put not the most blood, sweat, and tears out of any artist out there, but I still put a fair amount of blood, sweat, and tears into this. You know? It's just like, I just hate the word talented so much, and just talent in general. I don't like it. I just don't like it. I'm sorry, Deacon, but I just don't like that word. It's so just. And plus, it just like makes other people like, I don't have talent. It's like, no, you just need to practice. The closest thing to talent to me is your ability to enjoy what you want to do. Because the more you enjoy it, the more you do it, and the more you do it, the more better you get at it. It's like a muscle in a way. You know? Yeah, some people might have a better starting off point, but that doesn't mean you can't at least get good. Very skilled. I don't like those quotation marks there, Deacon. I don't appreciate the quotation marks. It's just skill. No quotation. Just straight up skill. And you can get this good too if you just practice. Practice. That's all you have to do. It sucks. It takes a long time. And people don't want to admit it. You know that meme of the very hard to swallow pills? And the pills just have like the text over it of the truth? Yeah, it's like that. It's practice. People don't want to admit it because people are lazy. I'm not saying that you're lazy. I'm just saying that people just say that and it discourages others from trying. Because it's like, oh, you don't have talent because you're not immediately good at something that requires years of practice. And it's like, yeah, no wonder, because it requires years of practice to get good at something. You know? You know, take it from someone who hates himself so much because I'm not good at art. Even I would say, yeah, it's practice. Just no art. And stuff, just get very passionate. You know what I want to do? Okay, so I have like 40 of these things, and I love them, but I want them to have a more of a point. So what I'm going to do, we're going to do a little bit of a do-it-yourself project here to get a fine point eraser without needing to buy those fine point erasings. You know, I love this thing, but it's still kind of bold, you know? So what we're going to do here is going to make our own thin eraser to work with. So we just take off all of that. Right here. And then we're gonna take a skizzer, peel off the entirety of this. Just completely de-dress. Strip it down. And what we're going to do is first cut this in half long ways. There we go. Then cut in half again on one side. And there we go. Now we got a thinner, blockier eraser. Sizzle. Now look at this. Now we got a nice thin eraser to work with. You don't want to go too thin, because I tried this with the white mono erasers before, and I tried like going even deeper or thinner, and it didn't work out as well. So yeah, but now we got a nice thin eraser to work with that's also blocky, and as you erase with it, the tip gets thinner and thinner, so that you get to be even more precise. Boom. Do-it-yourself thin erasers. Best thing ever. Oh yeah. Or you can just take like a knife and just kind of like sharpen it. Kind of like old school pencil style. So this is adults Alice and young Alice. There you go. There we go. And maybe like the bookmark. Yeah. Let's put this here like that. Where's this bit right here? Here we go. There. Okay. It's always awkward to draw once you get to the edge here, because it like then you have to kind of like freestyle with your hand and stuff like that, and it's just like some dimples in there. Next up, we're going to draw Bryce. Who's 17, the cousin of Alice and the older stepbrother of Ellie. The reason why they're considered the stepbrother and stepsister of Ellie and only cousins to each other is because they both have to move in with their grandfather, who is the foster father of Ellie. This is particularly young Bryce. Since he's like 17, he has facial hair, but not like a lot of facial hair, just some. When it comes to these cut up erasers, it's best to try to hold like as much of it as possible so it doesn't wiggle around a lot, which is like the biggest problem when you cut them up. And it's the reason why the clicky erasers have the plastic barrel, not just to click them in and out and keep the rest of the eraser dry, but also gives you some foundational things to work with. So that's some stuff to keep in mind. Or like hold it very close to where you actually want to use it on, you know? Or maybe you can even wrap it around like with I guess like if you cut up something like this and you fold it around like so. Like that can add some extra support and stuff like that to it. I don't know, something to think about. And let's draw older Bryce.
One thing about Bryce, when he is young, he's a lot more gung ho about a lot of things. He is very wanting to kind of like really progress really fast in life. He really wants to become a knight. In this fantasy world, knights are still a thing, but they act kind of like more like policemen in the modern day. They used to be more part of the army back when their grandfather was a knight. But he wants to become a knight. He really wants to like help people and stuff like that. He's really gung ho. But as he gets kind of like older, he kind of like mellows out a lot more. Which I kind of want to show like with his like hair. Where it's like when he's younger, his hair is a lot more pulled back. He looks like he's a little bit more ready for action. Well, as he grows older, he kind of lets his hair in front of him. He kind of lets it kind of like hang a bit more. He's a lot more mellowed out as a person, mainly because of like how the world kind of messed with his expectations. Him just kind of having to rethink some things. He still wants to help people, but he ultimately ends up leaving the knights of the world, which are like all like one kind of like big organization, which I'm still trying to come up with a good name for. But in general, he ends up kind of like giving up on being a knight and becomes a mercenary instead. And that's actually the beginning of the adult arc. Actually involves around a lot about Ellie teaching Bryce Raw the ropes, because Ellie herself is a full-fledged mercenary. So she ends up teaching Bryce a lot of the more finer points of the trade. Bryce isn't completely dumb about it though, because he, since he was a knight, he did a lot of similar things. Like when it comes to mission structures, he doesn't really need a breakdown for, because he could just tell by the names, since they use the same names as they did in knights. But he was just more need to know like how like the exact process happens, payments, stuff like that. What do the stars mean on the job listings? So that's kind of like the first arc of the adult arc. Is just Ellie just kind of meeting up with Bryce and kind of showing him what's what. And it's also supposed to be like one of the first examples of the contrast between kids and adults is how Ellie, when we first see her, is really shy, very like, you know, innocent little girl. But when we see her as an adult, she's a lot more cynical, like noticeably very cynical. Not to the point where she's off-putting, but to the point where like, yeah, you would have like a similar reaction that she might have to things. But it's just like supposed to be something a little bit jarring compared to what we see her as a kid. And with Bryce, again, he's a lot more relaxed, a lot less gung ho, and more specifically, he's very trepidous around Ellie at first because he doesn't necessarily trust her all that much. But when they're adults, they're really friendly towards each other because they have grown to know each other by that point. So it's supposed to give you an idea of where they start at and how they end up, and now we get to see what happens in between. Like why they're a lot more friendlier, like how they got to know each other more and stuff like that. So yeah. And finally, I guess the next most important character is the grandpa, Guilford. Or just Gil. He is a knight, a war veteran, and a pretty important figure in the world of Bryce Darkness. More so because he was a general back in the Demi Wars, when demi-humans both angels and demons were tired being kind of oppressed, essentially. And they started a rebellion against the governments of the world. Gil, known for his brutal but also diplomatic tactics, managed to put the end to the war once he became a general, and quickly rose up in the ranks, and managed to kind of like reach a better agreement to things, and was able to end the war before things escalated too hard. But that's just because of his very, very, very brutal tactics. So he's pretty much a controversial figure from the Demi Wars in terms of demis themselves. But they also, like, it's controversial because they know that he's the reason why they're able to, like, now have their own settlements. And, like, under, like, legal protection jurisdiction from knights and stuff like that. But at the same time, he also pretty much kind of killed people, and his tactics, again, were pretty brutal. After the war, Gil kind of went neck deep into his knighthood. And really tried to clean up his hometown, which was the capital of his country, which I'm still trying to come up with a good name for. But the capital is based on the lore of the Knights of the Round, and it's called Camelot. Not the country, the city is known as the Holy City of Knights, Camelot. And it during a few wars that happened even before the Demi War, Camelot just kind of became this kind of like backwater city, kind of like some of the worst parts of New York in a way. And he spent a lot of his post-war time trying to clean up the city best he could, so his family could be safe and so other families can thrive back in the city, because he remembers back when he was a kid it was actually a pretty good town. But after the wars that happened, and especially after the Demi War, it was just kind of a bit of a shit show. So he spent a lot of his time, dedicated so much time to trying to fix it, but in turn he kind of ended up ignoring his family quite a bit, to the point where his wife flat left him with her kids. And just like essentially took her kids and just left him. He didn't even notice until like 2 weeks after they did, because he was so dissonant from his actual family that they couldn't even properly tell him at half the time that they were trying to, like, you know, warn him, hey, we're going to leave if you don't, like, you know, slow down and spend some time with your family. Even though they were being well taken care of, but it was like an emotional burden, essentially. They were willing to give up, like, you know, the money and stuff like that, the kind of like semi-nobility status that they had, because just being around that town was just a bit too painful, with the fact that, like, you know, the father's never there, he's always constantly doing things, you know, and kids want their father. And so Mona, Guilford's wife, tried to warn him that if you don't, you know, spend time with your kids, I will leave you. But she couldn't tell him that because he was never around the house. She could never get the hold of the guy. And remember, this was before the day of cell phones and stuff like that. And this was before even phones were really a thing, and only really radios were the only long-distance communication. So she ended up just flat out leaving without having to tell him because she couldn't. And he didn't notice until like 2 weeks after they left. And it's like, oh, they're gone. And that's just some... Plus with the wars and stuff like that, he really kind of like regrets a lot of his choices, especially before he became a general and when he was just a simple soldier. PTSD, stuff like that. His family leaving him. He kind of just like... He did end up slowing down in his night work just due to, depression, not having his family around. And he just kind of realizes, oh shit, I fucked up. And during, he was then later was starting to plan to retire some years later. Quite a number of years later, because to give his two kids are the mother and father of Alice and Bryce, and they were already born by the time he was planning to leave and retire from being a knight. And right before he retired, he adopted Ellie. I want to keep exactly why he adopts her a bit of a secret, just so that the story would have something to kind of show about their background. But yeah, he ends up adopting Ellie, and then moves away from Camelot into kind of like a cottage, a bit away from a settlement, so he can raise Ellie. So yeah, and after some stuff happens with a kind of like a passing plague known as the Pale Plague, went around the area where Bryce and Alice lived, along with Mona and their parents. Mona ended up getting severely hurt by the plague and is permanently hospitalized. Both Alice and Bryce's parents all died. And Alice and Bryce were lucky enough to be immune to the Pale Plague. So after being quarantined for a few days, they were safe to be around and stuff like that. And since Mona can't take care of them anymore, even though they're pretty old enough to kind of do things on their own, they still needed to have a parent. In this world, the legal age for being an adult is actually 20, not 18. So even though Bryce is 17, he's actually 3 years off from being an adult rather than just being 1 year off. So they both move in with Guilford, which is actually the first time that Guilford even sees his grandchildren, because he's just been so estranged from the rest of his family that this is the first time they're meeting them, and vice versa. So it's just kind of this awkward situation at first, which leaves a lot of room for me to develop them as a family, where Guilford's very dedicated to the fact that he wants this to work out, but he's generally nervous. Plus, he kind of has a adopted daughter, which is legally, technically, the aunt of Bryce and Alice, which is something that I kind of want to make a few jokes about here and there, where technically Ellie, or Ebony, is the aunt of Alice and Bryce. And it's a joke that they more use when they're adults. So yeah. I need to get really good at drawing really older guys' faces. Because I kind of want Gil to have kind of that really old man sort of look. Without being middle-aged man sort of look. Without being, super old. Push up his mouth a bit. Here is child Ellie with her angel hair, or angel paradigm, which is like really fluffy. One of the things I kind of like wanted to show is that angel hair is like usually really light and fluffy, and demon hair is a little bit more silkier, a little bit more smoother overall, and a lot more straight. And this is Ellie trying to think really hard about stuff, because when she reads and tries to think about things really hard, especially when she's a kid, she's in her angel paradigm, which makes her hair really fluffy and curly, like super fluffy. Okay. This character right here is a nurse character who helps take care of Ellie and her health issues. And she actually personally knew Gil for quite a number of years. They actually met in the military, along with Mona. Both Mona and I forgot what I named her. Hold on a sec. I gave her a name. I'm really bad at remembering names. Like, I am significantly bad. Okay, I didn't give her a name, apparently. I thought I... Let you know, the worst things about me trying to remember things is anything related to a name. Just, I am bad with names. I'm bad with naming characters and stuff like that. Yeah, but this is essentially a combat medic that Gil met in the military, and it's one of the main reasons why he moved nearby the Demi-town, because she was during the war was secretly treating Demi soldiers and their families' wounds and giving them medical care. Gil knew about it even when he was a general, but he'd never said anything about it because he knew that Demis were people too. So he just kind of like silently allowed it. So in return to that, she helps take care of Ellie years later when Gil asked for her help. She originally thought it was just like some sort of like, oh, this is another public relations thing that Gil's doing. But once she saw Ellie, she was like, oh no, this is something way more personal, isn't it? And he was like, yeah, and it's like, okay, I'll help you, but you have to leave Camelot. Because it's definitely no place to be raising a demi-child. So she kind of acts like a surrogate mother for Ellie in a lot of ways. The two are very close to each other. this character right here is a side character who also lives in the settlement, named Liliana. She is a demi-succubus, and she becomes a romantic interest for Bryce. She is 21 years old, 4 years older than Bryce in the child arc. And she kind of acts as a sort of cousin slash another sister for Ellie. A lot of the characters that kind of built around being somehow related to Ellie, since she is the main character. So I figured, like, if the character's going to have significance, how would they play into her or the people around her? Start finding the link. I could probably make the eyes look better. Anyway. Let's exaggerate the expression a bit more.
Sorry if you hear talking in the background. There we go. Yeah, I want to call it another short one today. Starting to feel that loss of energy again. So I'm just going to assume I'm probably not going to come back later on today. That's a good 45 minutes. I think that's more my comfort spot. I tried to push for 2 hours the first couple of days, but I think for 1 hour and 45 minutes are closer to what I feel more comfortable with. But I think I did a decent amount, so... We did this, we also did a lot of talking about stuff. So I guess, yeah, portraits weren't all that much, really. But I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more drawing on my own. Because I am in a drawing mood, I just not have the energy to keep drawing in a stream. But yeah, but like I said, this, sketchbook is dedicated to the stream only, so you'll only ever see me draw in this when it comes to the sketchbook stream. So yeah, hope y'all enjoyed, and I'm thinking I'm gonna end the stream right now. Also still using these sketchbooks as a way to prop up this end so I don't break the binding here. Anyway, see you all later.